Welcome to a new video in my home automation series, and today I'm going to review another Shelly product, which is the Shelly Motion. And this is a brand new product, and I was unfortunate to actually receive this product before the launch, so I had some time to actually test it, and by the time you are seeing this video I have some experience with it. And as you can see, it is a Wi-Fi motion sensor, and I did review motion sensor for many different companies in the past, but not a Wi-Fi motion sensor. Because as it turns out, battery operated Wi-Fi motion sensing is a very complicated topic, because what we expect from a motion sensor, that motion is detected, it can respond immediately. But with battery operated devices, you can't respond immediately because there is a certain lag how quickly the chip inside can connect to the Wi-Fi network and send the data over. And especially on a battery operated device, you can't be on the Wi-Fi network all the time, otherwise your battery life is going to be reduced in maybe in just a couple of days or within a week. And this is why all the motion sensors that I've reviewed in the past, they were all Zigbee motion sensors. But what Shelly managed to do is create a Wi-Fi motion sensor that actually works, and it performs all the functions that we expect, which is basically give a really quick response time when motion is detected, so it is able to actuate, well, in my case, a Shelly Duo. So as you can see in the sample footage, as soon as I walk into the room, the light automatically comes on thanks to the motion sensor, and of course it manages to do it with being battery operated. So as you can see, the unit, it basically consists of a few parts. So you have the wall mount, you have the actual device, which is operated by using a battery, and you can see the charging port here, and well, it is a motion sensor. Probably it's a little bit bigger motion sensor than some of the other motion sensor, and it also definitely feels that it has a decent sized battery inside, but to be honest, it delivers the function that you need. So I don't really care how it got done. They managed to overcome the technical details, and well, it is working and it is available for us to use. And before we carry on, let me just talk about the unit itself, because it's not just a motion sensor. The main thing is it has a PIR element, so it detects motion using passive infrared, but it also contains an ambient light sensor. So as we are going to see later in the demo, it's not only going to create action based on whether motion is detected, but when motion is detected on daylight or twilight or in the dark. So it opens up a few more possibilities of how you can use this device. Also, besides these two sensors, there is also a motion detection or a vibration sensor built inside, so it can detect whether the device is getting moved. So let's say if it's used as a security device, it would be able to tell if somebody is trying to move the sensor or maybe cover it. And probably one more techie feature that I want to mention is that the battery inside is a 6500 milliamp hour battery. So this is quite a sizable battery. I don't exactly remember what size of batteries the phone has, but I think it's almost like what phone batteries are, and that probably also explains the weight of the device. So Shelly claims that in normal operation, this battery should last this device over a year. And in low motion areas, maybe it can last for 2 or 3 years. Of course, I won't be able to tell if it's true, but certainly it has been in my office where I usually work, and because it's COVID, I'm working from home every day. And within the week, where as I said, I'm constantly in the room probably for at least 8 or 10 hours a day, so it's constantly detecting my motion. I think within the week I have lost probably 5% of the battery. Let me cover the unboxing before I carry on with the actual testing and the demonstration. So we are receiving the device in this fairly large box, and in the box itself we are getting the motion sensor, and there is this leaflet, and as I mentioned before, the motion sensor is actually 3 different parts. So you have this clip-on part that it's quite a firm part which has a screw mount, so you can fix this on the wall, and then it goes into this ball joint, and actually this can be removed as well. So if you want to mount this flush to the wall, there is another screw mount, basically just a screw hole there. So you put a screw in the wall and then you can just hang it on the wall. So you have these 2 mounting options. And this second mounting option is actually quite nice because it gives the device quite a lot of freedom degree of freedom motion, so you can just orient it the way you want it. It's a very firm one, so don't be afraid of, you know, pulling or pushing quite hard for it to, you know, snap on. But that's basically the unit, and there is this big dome here, and as you can see, it illuminates in a couple of different colors. So the red color is motion detection, and the green color is the tamper detection. And of course, you're getting a mix of two, so sometimes you're getting the purple or the or sometimes only the green light or the red or the purple one, where it's both of them. And on the bottom we have a micro USB socket, so that's where you can charge the battery. There is no lead provided or charger provided, so you have to use your own, but I would imagine that probably the easiest way is just to walk around in your house using a power bank and then charge these devices. But as I said, it looks like that it's, you know, sufficient if you charge them once a year. And next to it, well, there is actually two holes, but the left hole is also used as a reset button. So as it's shown here in the documentation, you can just poke like a paper clip, and that's how you reset the device and you get it into pairing mode. And just like with other Shelly devices, you are getting this single page leaflet which talks about the technical specifications and then how you set up in the app, and you also have these mounting options, and it also tells you, you know, where should you mount it and, you know, how much coverage it provides. I didn't talk about the pairing, but again, it's a really simple process. As I said, you need to put a paper clip into the left hole and then keep it pressed for a couple of seconds until it starts flashing, and then you just select, you know, the three dots, or the three lines, and add device, and you just follow the usual pairing process. And once you are done that, as you can see, the motion sensor is added to your device, or well, it's added to the room. I added to my test room along with all my other devices. And once I go into the sensor, then you can see a couple of icons. So it has an icon for the sensor itself, and then on the left side, and on the right side, it shows you a couple of icons. So it shows that there is motion detected. That was the last event. It also shows you that it detects that it's in dark and the battery is 95%. And the extra icon that you see left to the motion detected icon, that's the vibration sensor. So I had it mounting on my wall, and I removed it for this, you know, test video. So that was the last action where it was, you know, showing that that was motion detected. And because it's a sensor, of course, there's no buttons here that you can change. So let me go through the settings. And first of all, let me go through the device specific settings. So the first is going to be the sensor settings. And actually you can change quite a lot in here. So I think with all these settings, you can really tune this device to work best for your situation. So first of all, as I said, you will be able to define motion detection better based on the illumination, and then the illumination is categorized into three different basically categories: when it's in light, or when it's at dusk, or at the dark. So these are the lux values that you would be able to set. So by default, it says it's dark if the illumination is below 100 lux, and if it's dusk, if it's below 500 lux. And of course, if it's above 500 lux, it would say daylight. But you can always change that. The only thing is that you are actually not seeing the lux value, well, the current lux value on the screen. But if you connect to this device using, you know, your browser, and then you just go into the web page that this device provides, just like any other device, it actually shows you the lux value there. So I'm just going to clip in an example screen from there. So you can change these, because later on when we set up the automation, you can set them up whether you want the automation to work in dark or in dusk or in daylight or all the time. The next one is the sensitivity. So you can set the motion sensing sensitivity, and as you can see, the lower values are the higher sensitivity in this case. And in the documentation, you find some examples. I think they are saying about how you can set the sensitivity. For example, if you don't want it to detect a small animal, so if you have pets in the house, you know, what should be the motion sensitivity that you need to set. So it says by default the value is 50, which allows detection of objects over 15 kilograms. So there you go. Next one is the motion blind time. So here what happens is, again, it's related to how this device works internally. So if it detects motion, then it's going to go into a blind time, which means that once it detected motion, it's not going to look for motion again, just again to save battery and not to, connect to the internet and send so many messages. So that's where you can configure it. So if you say, the blind time is 2 minutes, then let's say it turns on your light when it starts detecting motion. That light would definitely be on for 2 minutes, because only after 2 minutes it would check again if there is still motion or the motion has stopped. So you can set that to any value, and as you can see, you can set it from 1 to 5. So it can only re-trigger every minute, because otherwise it would be just in a blind time. The next one is the pulse count. So this is a little bit goes beyond the blind time, because you can specify when to trigger the motion detection. If it's set to 1, it means that once it detects motion, it would automatically, send a motion detection alert. But you can set it to, 1 to 4. So if you are noticing that this device gives you too many false alarms, you can set this one to a higher number. And by the way, I have to tell you that I'm using this device on the absolute default settings, and I haven't noticed that it sends me false alarms or if it's missing any motion alarms. So it seems to be, very well tuned, and the sensors and everything in it, appears to be working really, really good. So that's the pulse count. The next one is the operating mode, so motion detection operating mode. So this is where you can set whether you want the motion detection to be detected in any light conditions or only in certain light conditions. So you can restrict it into maybe like dark or twilight, which means that if it's, let's say, if you set it to dark, it means that if the light condition is bright or twilight, it's not even going to look for motion. So again, that could save battery even more, but I just leave it on any. And then you also have a tamper alarm sensitivity. So as I said, it also contains a motion sensor. So you can set the sensitivity of that motion sensor. So this is really about tampers and making sure that nobody removes the device or covers it up. And last, we have a sensor enable. So if for any reason you want to disable the sensor, you can just click it here, and then, the sensor is going to be disabled until you enable it again. And last is the sleep timer. So this is a one-time activation. If for any reason you want the device to disable, but then you want it to automatically enable again, you can set a sleep timer. So, maybe it's in the evening and you don't want any more motion detection. You set it to like, 2 hours, and in 2 hours you go to bed anyway, but you want the device to automatically activate itself by next morning, so you can set the sleep time. So these are the device or the sensor specific settings, and as you can see, there is quite a lot. So you can really play around with these settings and then just come to the the optimal setup for whatever application you have. For the second part of this demonstration, I decided to come back to my room where I originally had the device set up. As you can see, it is up there, and I'm going to control my Shelly Duo, which is in this IKEA lamp. And the other thing I've done is I've actually reset the device, so we are back to the original settings. If you would install it and you just add it to your application, because the one difference that you see from just a couple of seconds ago, that we have this big options here, which helps you to do the initial setup of the motion sensor. And that's actually quite nice, because it's like automatically setting up a scene. Although, as we are going to see it later on, it's not actually creating a scene, but it is going to automatically configure the URL actions for you, which is extra handy, because I think that's the better way of integrating Shelly devices, because then the motion sensor is now going to talk directly to the Shelly Duo, so there would be no cloud required. So even if your internet goes down, this functionality is still going to work. So let's go through this setup, and then we can see at the end what it actually does. So I'm going to click on the setup button. So setup, and we have a couple of options here. So we want to set up an automation if any motion is detected, or we can limit it only when the motion is detected in the dark or in the twilight or when it's bright. Actually, I want to set it up so it works all the time. I use this mostly for testing, so I can just see it, you know, during the day, how fast it reacts to my motion. So I'm selecting the top one, but again, you can select any of the one in between, and I click next, and I can specify how long I want the lights to be on once motion is detected. Actually, I want to pick something short, so that I pick 3 minutes, and then you can select the lights. So as you can see at the moment, it's automatically giving you options to select the light. So I have the duo, and I'm going to pick this up, and then it asks me if I really want to do this, and yes, I want to continue. And now we just wait for a while the the motion sensor sets up its own automation. And good, and it's completed. So what we are going to see here is, well, that screen disappeared because we already created that. And now if I go into the IO URL actions, actually, as you can see here, it says quick action setup. So if you ever want to change those settings, you can just go through that wizard again, and it will change your settings. So here in the URL actions, you see the same options that you have seen before. So you can set up an action, what should happen if motion is detected, what should happen if motion is detected in the dark or in twilight or in bright, and what should happen if no more motion is detected, and what should happen with the tamper alarm or at the end of the tamper. And the wizard hasn't configured anything for that. So all the wizard has done is it configured, well, based on your initial selection, whether it's the motion detected or in dark, in twilight or in bright, and the end of motion detected. And as you can see, if I open up the settings, it ticked the enabled, and it put the URL which actually going to turn my Shelly Duo on. And I've already gone to a great length about how you can determine these URLs in my Shelly Duo video. Probably the only takeaway I would like to add is that at the moment the motion sensor has detected what is the IP address of the Shelly Duo. So if you want to make sure that it works reliably and for a long period, I would recommend that you set a fixed IP address for the Shelly Duo, because obviously now the IP of the Duo is 130 or whatever device that you're controlling. But if it's not on a fixed IP address, this might change, and then your integration is broken. And at the end of the motion, you can see that it sends a turn off signal. With this, your motion sensor is now working. And since I was talking about this IP address, let me just go through the settings, or go into the settings. So if I pick the Duo, and if I go into, I think it's in internet security, I always forget where it is. So you can pick the Wi-Fi mode, and here you can enable the set static IP address, and then you just type the the IP address to the gateway and the DNS that you want to set for that device permanently. I made some manual changes to the URL actions. As you can see, besides turn on, I also added this end brightness equals 20. So what I wanted is that when motion is detected, the light comes on at a lower brightness. And I've also added a tamper alarm. So if there is tamper enabled, then it's basically the same command, but the brightness is 100. So then it's going to bring the light on at full brightness. And of course, I added the same off command for the off action when there is no more tamper detected. So if I go back now, and if I start tapping the device, now we can see that the tamper was detected and the light comes back to full brightness. And it's actually a very quick action. As you can see, the light has already gone off. And when simple motion is detected, then the light comes on at a lower brightness, which is pretty much what you have seen in the beginning of the video when I was testing it a couple of days ago. So this is one other way of setting it up, using the motion sensor to send different events to a light bulb. And again, you can use the same idea here if you add the detected in the dark, the twilight, and a bright scene, because then you can just, program your lamp to come on at different brightness levels just to be appropriate for the time of the day or just the external illumination. And as you can see, I just lowered the illumination settings or illumination definition. So I think by default it is 100 and 500. So I lowered it to 50 and 200. And as far as I can see, the current illumination is 94 lux. So according to this, now it is in twilight mode. And last, let me go through some of the other features. So here in the weekly schedule, just like with other device, you can set up schedules. And when you are adding a schedule, then you are able to set obviously the time and the hour and the minutes. And then you can specify whether you want to activate or deactivate the motion detection. So if you know that this motion sensor is in an area where you don't want motion to be detected, you can set up a schedule to automatically enable or disable it. So I think this is a nice feature. I mean, we have seen this, how you can do this manually, but here you can specify a schedule. And of course, within the schedule, you can set multiple of these, times, hours and minutes, and whether the motion detection should be turned on and off. So I'm going to disable that now. Also in the settings, you have an option to disable the control light. So that's the LED lights behind the dome, which illuminates red, green, blue, and purple. So if you don't want that, you can disable that. But all the other features about this device are pretty much the same that we have seen for others. So, the different Wi-Fi modes and upgrade the firmware. And in the application settings, we just have an option to exclude it from the event log. And if you click on this top right icon, you can look at the event logs. So you can see when, motion was detected and when, there was no more motion detected by this sensor. So you can disable this. And probably the last one that I haven't talked about is the sharing. So you can share this device with other Shelly users if you enter that account. And that's pretty much it. If you are interested in this device, you will find purchasing links in the video description. But I think that would be all for today. Thanks for watching and hopefully see you in the next video.